My 17-year-old daughter spent 3 days cooking for 23 people for my mom's birthday party. My dad texted last minute. We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. It's adults only. I didn't make a scene. I did this instead. 15 hours later, the door started shaking. The door started shaking about 10 minutes before the guests were supposed to arrive. I was in the kitchen standing there with a spoon in one hand and tears in my eyes. Not because of the beet salad in front of me, though they do look like something you'd pull out of a surgery tray. No, I was crying because my 17-year-old daughter Ava had been dancing around the kitchen for 3 days straight like her entire life depended on whether her grandmother liked her lavender glaze. And maybe in Ava's mind it did. That morning, she was up at 5:00 a.m. I'm not being dramatic. I heard her alarm go off. She had already baked, prepped frosted, burned one tart, and remade it, and even steam cleaned the floor. She said it was giving health inspector energy. That was her exact phrase. The table was set for 23 people. Handwritten name cards, fresh flowers, printed menus that looked like they came from a high-end French bistro. The whole house smelled like thyme butter and some sweet citrusy thing I couldn't even identify, but it smelled expensive. Ava had curled her hair. Her apron was spotless. She was glowing in that tired, high adrenaline way that only brides with second thoughts and reality show finalists ever do. And then my phone buzzed. It was the family group chat. You know, the one mostly used for blurry photos of someone's potato salad or Happy Easter messages. The message was from my dad. It read, "We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. It's adults only. No punctuation, no apology, just that." At first, I thought I'd misread it. Or maybe it was a joke. Ava had literally just pulled a tray of sugar-free pear tarts out of the oven for Grandma's diabetic neighbor. She was humming. I stepped out into the hallway pretending to take a call. I wasn't. I just needed a second to stop my hands from shaking. I stared at the message. We've decided. Not I. We. So I called my dad. It rang twice. Hey, he answered cheerful. You get the message. You're not coming. I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No, we changed plans. It was just easier this way. We're already here. You're at the restaurant right now. Yup, just sat down. Menu looks great. Everyone's here. Why I asked. Ava's been cooking for 3 days. You said we'd host it here. She made enough food for 23 people. She's been up since 5 this morning. He went quiet for a second. Oh, well, tell her not to take it personally. She can freeze the leftovers, can't? She gotta go. Waiter's here. Click. I stared at my phone like it had just cursed at me. Then I called my mom. Hello, she answered like nothing was on fire. Did you really just not come, I asked? There was a sigh. Honey, don't start. We just thought it'd be more convenient. And honestly, we didn't want to risk anyone getting sick. Sick, she's 17. Jenna, it's sweet, but it's not exactly safe to serve food cooked by a child to that many people. What if someone got food poisoning? She's not 5. She's taken culinary classes. She built a menu. She sanitized everything. She even made diabetic options. Well, that's nice, she interrupted, but it's not real cooking. Not like at a restaurant. I hung up. Next, I called my sister. Not because I expected better, just because a part of me hoped maybe she didn't know. She knew. Oh, Jenna, she said, don't guilt everyone over this. She's crying. She's dramatic. She's exhausted. She's 17. She needs to learn that not everything is about her. She made food for 23 people, and none of us wanted to be her test subjects. The way she said test subjects made my jaw tighten like Ava was some kind of rat in a lab maze. I didn't even wait to hear the rest. I just hung up. Behind me, Ava was still talking. Do you think the pomegranate glaze is too sweet? I didn't want to overdo it. Also, is the lighting too warm? I wanted it to feel like a real restaurant, but not fake fancy, and she stopped. I turned around. My face must have given something away because she just stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked down to the phone in my hand. She reached for it. I didn't stop her fast enough. Her thumb opened the group chat. She saw it, the photo. A long restaurant table, clinking glasses, plates already full. My sister's teenage kids, who apparently were adult enough, now smiling. My mom beaming. My dad holding up a wine glass like he was giving a damn toast. Ava just stared, too long, too quiet. Then she hit call. Grandma, she said. I couldn't hear the other side of the call, but I watched her nod. Then stopped nodding. Her whole face just collapsed like someone had stepped on her chest. But she didn't sob. She didn't wail. She just let the tears fall slowly like she was embarrassed even to cry. I reached for her. She stepped back. She put the phone down gently, like it was glass. Then she turned toward the cake. 3 layers, piped rosettes. Happy 67th, Grandma, written in dark chocolate curls. She stared at it. Said nothing. And I just stood there, useless. But then I thought, no, not this time, not again. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew this much: I wasn't going to let them define her moment. Not this time, not without seeing what happened next. Because here's the truth I learned in that moment. The worst kind of heartbreak isn't watching your kid cry. It's watching them try not to because they don't want to make you feel bad. That night, while everyone else was clinking glasses and sipping cocktails at some overpriced downtown restaurant, I was standing in the hallway outside Ava's bedroom, holding a plate of untouched roast duck, wondering how the hell we ended up here. Of course, deep down, I already knew. It started long before the birthday, before Ava, before the beet salad, before the lavender glaze. It started the moment I was born. And no, I'm not being dramatic. I was the second daughter, 2 years younger than my sister, unplanned. My mom never used the word mistake, but she didn't have to. She said things like, we thought we were done after your sister, and you were a surprise. But a sweet one. which in plain English translates to we didn't want another kid, but we're making do. My sister was exactly what they ordered, blonde, bubbly, social, graceful. She could spin in a circle and somehow land applause. I, on the other hand, could take apart a broken ceiling fan and rebuild it so it ran smoother, but all that got me was scolded for messing with man things. She took ballet. I once took apart a toaster and got grounded for destroying appliances. They paid for every single dance class, every recital, every glittery gold costume. When I asked if I could try a weekend leatherwork course at the local craft center, I got hit with, "We don't have money for that. Besides, what would you even do with it?" Well, here's what I did with it. Years later, I turned that useless interest into a business. I now run a small but steady company creating custom handmade home goods. My husband works with wood, I work with textiles and metal. Together, we make things people actually want in their homes. We don't live in luxury, but we're doing just fine. Honest work, solid income. Clients who pay on time, people who appreciate craft. My parents still call it a nice little side thing. Meanwhile, my sister has 2 degrees, one in literature, one in dance, and the job stability of a foam noodle in a hurricane. But she's still elegant, still adored. And because life is irony personified, I still help her out financially from time to time. Quietly, without fanfare, because that's what I've always done. Birthdays, travel costs, the occasional busted water heater at my parents' place, all quietly absorbed by the bank of, well, Jenna's doing fine. They treat my income like community property and my opinions like junk mail. And then came Ava, my daughter, my heart, my karma in its purest form. She's like me, but bolder, less apologetic. Niche interests, sure, but she owns them. Her hands are constantly dusted in flour or dripping in some new sauce she's inventing. She once cried because her hollandaise lacked emotional depth. I still don't know what that means, but I love her for it. Ava doesn't just like to cook, she wants to be a chef. Capital C chef. She reads restaurant reviews like other kids scroll TikTok. She talks about mise en place like it's a religion. She's already researching which culinary school she wants, whether she'll go savory or pastry, what region she might specialize in. She's 17. And just like they did to me, my family keeps trying to smother that fire before it gets too bright. They pat her on the head with stuff like, oh, it's cute that she plays in the kitchen, or she'll grow out of it, or she's too sensitive for that industry, or my personal favorite, maybe she should do something more academic, like her aunt. Right, because crippling student debt and no job prospects is the family legacy we're preserving now. I've seen Ava bite her tongue too many times to count. Once after a family brunch, she locked herself in the bathroom for 20 minutes. When I found her, she said she was just washing her face. She blamed the tears on an onion she chopped 6 hours earlier. So when she came to me 3 weeks before Grandma's birthday and said, "Mom, I want to cook the whole thing this year, the whole dinner," just me, I froze. Not because I doubted her, but because I knew what she was walking into. I asked 3 times. Are you sure? Each time her answer was firmer. Yes, I want to show them what I can do. So she did. She planned a full menu, balanced it, costed it out, took into account every allergy, every dietary quirk. My dad doesn't eat mushrooms. My mom says cilantro tastes like soap. Ava adjusted for both. She sourced ingredients, spent her own money, borrowed a friend's cake turntable to practice frosting lines. She made printed menus, created a kitchen timeline like a general heading to battle. Every night she showed me her task list, and every night I said they're going to love it. But in my gut, I hated that she even had to ask. The day of the party, she was up at 5 horrors a.m. again. I heard the pans clattering, the classical music humming, the tap of her heels across the tile as she darted between oven and stove and sink. By 4 p.m., she looked exhausted, but also radiant, like someone doing exactly what they were meant to do. And you already know what happened next. They didn't show. They went to a restaurant instead, all of them. My parents, my sister, my niece and nephew. Even the ones who usually show up 2 hours late with a bag of off-brand chips and an apology made it. The only people missing were me and Ava. We stood there side by side looking at a 3-tier cake Ava had designed from scratch. Piped dark chocolate, candied violets. It looked like something you'd see under glass at a museum. They didn't just reject dinner. They rejected her. And they didn't even try to hide it. But that's not the worst part. The worst part. Later that night, when Ava was curled on the couch in her apron pretending to scroll her phone, I got a notification on my phone. A payment. 13978 for my business credit card. The one I sometimes use for family stuff, charged to the exact restaurant they were at. Same date, same number of guests. They hadn't just ditched Ava. They made me pay for the dinner that replaced hers. At first I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that was the only thing I could do to stop myself from putting my fist through the wall. I just stood there in the kitchen, one hand still holding the tart crust Ava had so carefully blind baked, and stared at the charge on my phone like it was written in another language. They used my card. They didn't just erase her effort, her heart, her dream. They made me pay for the erasure. Like we were supposed to just sit there in our time butter scented house, eat leftovers, and pretend it didn't happen. Like we were supposed to stay quiet. They thought they could steamroll over her passion and expect us to clean up the mess. They thought we'd fold. They thought we'd smile politely and freeze the duck. They thought wrong. I should have been calm, wise, mature. I should have hugged Ava and said something soft like, "It's okay, honey. You did your best." But that wasn't the mood I was in. Ava was still in the kitchen, standing stiff in front of the cake, her arms clenched at her sides like she wanted to throw something, but didn't want to mess up her own piping. I couldn't blame her. That cake was art. It had lacework, piped in chocolate around the base. She'd candied violets with a pastry torch like a tiny pyro with a sugar addiction. She turned to me with red, furious eyes and said, "We should throw it all out." I blinked. "No, if they won't eat it, someone else will." Like who, she asked, voice small. I didn't have an answer yet, but my hands were already moving. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling. My fingers were shaking, but not from sadness anymore. From purpose, from fury, from knowing I was about to rewrite the ending of this night with or without a guest list. First, I called my husband. He was still at work. "I need you home, now." He didn't even ask why. "Be there in 20, he said. Then I got to work. I started calling everyone. Neighbors, old friends. That cousin from my dad's side who always got left out for being too political translation calls people out on their crap. People from the local community group. A woman I met once at a bake sale. My dentist's receptionist. I didn't care. I didn't. I told them the truth. My daughter spent 3 days cooking a full dinner for her grandmother's birthday. They all ditched her. She made food for 23 people. I need people who can eat. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. And people came. Fast. By the time my husband pulled into the driveway, the first 2 cars had already parked. One neighbor brought an entire extended family who didn't have dinner plans anyway. Another showed up with a bottle of wine and a teenage son. A woman I hadn't seen since book club 2 years ago arrived with a bouquet of tulips she bought at a gas station on the way over. It was like a flash mob, but with casseroles and quiet solidarity. Like a protest, one dish at a time. Ava stood frozen in the hallway at first, whispering, "Oh my God, Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm salvaging your dignity and dessert. Now help me find more chairs." She blinked. "This feels like pity." "No, this is defiance." That shut her up, but only because I could see her brain buffering like a frozen app. We dragged in 2 folding tables from the garage and started laying out food. Roast duck, roasted root vegetables, a salad with edible flowers and pomegranate seeds, tarts arranged like art museum exhibits. By the time the third wave of people showed up, Ava had retreated into the kitchen, quietly whispering panic spells to herself while trying to reheat the appetizers without ruining the sauce. And that's when the journalist walked in. I didn't invite her. Someone else did, a friend of a friend, I think. She worked in food media, and apparently someone in the neighborhood group had tipped her off. She walked through the door with a camera bag and an appetite for drama. "I heard what happened," she said. "Mind if I try a few things?" I looked at Ava, who was standing next to the oven, frozen eyes wide like a deer that had just been asked to do a TED Talk. I answered for her, "Yes, absolutely. Here, let me get you a plate." The journalist didn't just taste. She photographed. She asked about ingredients, took notes, whispered things like, "She's better than some professional chefs I've reviewed, right?" I swallowed hard. Tell her that I said. Eventually, the chaos settled. All 23 seats were full, every single one. Ava peeked out from the kitchen like a nervous raccoon. "Should I serve the appetizer?" she asked. "No," I said. "You should serve your menu." And she did. The room went quiet as the first course rolled out. Lavender glazed carrots, beet salad with goat cheese crumble, fresh focaccia with herb butter. Then came the murmurs. "Oh, wow, is that lavender? This is incredible. She made this. She's 17. By the time the main course came out, there was actual clapping. And by dessert, someone stood up to make a toast. To Ava, they said, raising their glass. To the girl who cooked for 23, didn't quit when she was kicked down, and whose food tastes better than anyone we've ever paid to feed us. Standing ovation. Real applause. People wiped their eyes. Some asked for seconds. And then, as if the universe had a sense of comedic timing, someone pulled out a second cake. Store-bought. Brought as a backup in case Ava's fell through. But the crowd insisted on Ava's. She smiled, not huge, not giddy, but real. A small private smile that said this mattered. And just like that, I let myself breathe for the first time that day. By the time we cleared the last of the dessert plates, Ava looked like she had finally exhaled. People lingered. They asked her questions about her recipes, her techniques, where she learned to cook like that. She blushed and fidgeted and tried not to beam too obviously, but I could see it, the pride she was trying to stuff back inside. The glow of someone who just proved something not just to others, but to herself. And then came the text. It was past 2 a.m. Ava was asleep on the couch, still in her apron, one hand curled like she was holding an invisible spatula. I was washing dishes, humming something under my breath, when my phone buzzed again. It was a link from the journalist. A full article. Already live. The birthday that wasn't how a teen chef got ditched by her family and ended up hosting the most memorable dinner of the year. I clicked. And there it was, our story, Ava's story, the full thing. How a 17-year-old girl spent 3 days preparing a beautiful, thoughtful, allergy-conscious meal for her grandmother's birthday. How her family decided without warning to move the celebration to a restaurant. How they told her it was adults only. How they used her mom's credit card to pay for that restaurant meal. They didn't name my parents, but they named Ava. And more importantly, they told the truth. They talked about the meal, about her preparation, about the last-minute pivot, about the unexpected guests who came and the applause that followed. And at the very end, they included a quote from someone at the dinner. She didn't just feed us, she reminded us why food matters. Because food is love, and love should never be conditional. I read the article 3 times before I remembered to breathe. Then I scrolled to the comment section. Hundreds, and growing. She's incredible. Where can I try her food? Who does that to their granddaughter? This is why some of us cut off our families. I'd hire her for my wedding tomorrow. She's got more skill and grace than most chefs twice her age. I glanced over at Ava, still asleep, hair mussed flower on her cheek. And I knew this wasn't over. Because stories like this ripple. And some people really, really don't like when the truth spreads. You can always feel it coming. There's this weird, heavy silence that settles in before someone shows up at your door, not to apologize, but to defend themselves. It's not footsteps. It's not yelling. It's not even a car pulling up. It's just stillness, like the air's holding its breath. That stillness came the next morning. I was in the kitchen reheating coffee, scraping leftover polenta into Tupperware, trying to act like things were normal. And then bang, 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 I froze, peeked out the front window, and nearly laughed. But they actually came. My parents, standing on the porch, both wearing matching windbreakers like this, was a pre-scheduled walk in the park. And just behind them, arms folded like she practiced the pose in the mirror, was my sister. I opened the door because I was done hiding, but I didn't invite them in. You need to fix this, my dad barked. No hello, no can we talk, just straight to demands. My mom stepped forward, her voice tight. Do you have any idea what you've done to our reputation? My sister said nothing. Not yet. She was waiting for the moment. Dramatic timing, always her thing. I blinked. What I've done, they pushed past me, into my hallway, into my kitchen. Like they still had some kind of authority here. You told the media we abandoned Ava, my mom hissed. I crossed my arms. I didn't tell them anything. A journalist came, she tasted the food, she asked what happened, and she wrote the truth. Honestly, I think she went easy on you. My dad jabbed a finger toward me. You think this is funny? Everyone at church read that article. Our neighbors. My golf group won't even answer my messages. I raised an eyebrow. Devastating. That's when my sister stepped forward. You need to issue a correction, she said. Say it was exaggerated. Say it was taken out of context. I looked at her, hard. Taken out of context. Did someone hack your phone and send that group chat text? Did I imagine the $1, $300 charge on my card? Did Ava hallucinate the dinner photos you all posted online while she stood here serving imaginary guests? My mom's voice cracked. She made us look like monsters. No, I said. You did that yourselves. She just cooked. And that was the breaking point. The volume went up. They weren't even speaking to me anymore, just at me, around me, through me. She's just a child. She humiliated her grandmother for attention. You raised her wrong. She's dramatic, ungrateful. This is emotional blackmail. This is elder abuse. And then it happened. The moment that will stay etched in my bones forever. My mother turned toward Ava, who had quietly stepped into the hallway behind me at some point, and said, You should be ashamed of yourself. I didn't remember moving. 1 second, I was standing near the counter. The next, I was planted squarely between them and my daughter, arms out, heart pounding. That's when my husband walked through the front door. He didn't ask a single question. He saw their faces, saw Ava's tears, saw my stance, and said calmly out, My dad scoffed. This is a family matter. No, my husband replied. This is our home. You came here to scream at a 17-year-old girl who made you dinner. You don't get to hurt her twice. Not today. Not ever. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. They stood there for a second, all puffed up indignation and empty threats. Then my sister muttered something about legal action and stomped out like she was on the finale of a courtroom drama. My parents followed. The door slammed. Silence. Ava stood behind me, breathing hard. I reached for her, but she didn't move. She turned to the living room window. Outside, I saw phones. 3 of them. Our neighbor Jeff, who runs the local Facebook group and live streamed our last neighborhood barbecue, was standing on his lawn phone, raised, mouth open. Of course, I waved. The kind of wave that says hi there and post that and I'll set your compost bin on fire. That night, the video went live. Titled The Grandparents from that viral teen chef story just showed up at her house and screamed at her. Watch what they said. And the internet did what the internet does best. It lit the match. The comments were swift and brutal. Imagine being this bitter over a birthday cake. They sound like they're auditioning to play villains in a Hallmark movie. Who screams at a teenager who made them dinner? Protect Ava at all costs. This is why I stopped talking to my family. It's not worth the emotional gymnastics. And then came the one that hit me right in the chest. This is why some of us cut off our families. We didn't want to, but we had to. That night before I blocked them all, I saw the final flurry of texts come in. You've ruined us. We'll take legal action if you don't issue a correction. This is elder abuse. I didn't respond. I just blocked them, every single one of them. My parents, my sister, the whole family thread group chat. I deleted the business card they used to pay for the restaurant. That particular betrayal wouldn't happen again. And then I did something simple, something quiet. I made a post, not a rant, not a call out, just one sentence. We stand by every word, and we're done protecting people who hurt our daughter. I braced for backlash, for the usual family's complicated nonsense, for the people who'd say, but they're your parents, or you should fix things before it's too late. But that's not what I got. I got support. Old friends messaged me. Strangers messaged Ava. A local chef, someone with real credentials, not just Yelp stars, reached out and invited Ava to stage in his kitchen that summer. For those unfamiliar with the term, stage is basically a culinary internship, a chance to learn and prove yourself in a real kitchen. It's a big deal. Then a message came from someone at a culinary institute Ava had dreamed about for years. They didn't promise anything, of course, but they said they'd be watching her journey with interest. And just like that, without fanfare, things started shifting. We didn't celebrate, not yet, but we finally exhaled. Fast forward 1 year, Ava got in. Not just anywhere. She got into the culinary program she used to whisper about like it was a fairy tale. The one she thought she wasn't good enough for. The one she nearly gave up on because of one soul-crushing dinner that almost wasn't. She's still in her first year, but already she has clients. People who want her to cater small dinners, bake for birthdays, create desserts for their events. Some of them even mention the article. Her food blog. It's flying. She posts recipes, photos, short cooking videos, reviews of restaurants that don't make her feel like a kid playing dress up. She's got followers, real ones. The kind who comment, share, and most importantly, see her. She's not louder now, not brasher, just steadier, more herself. She never reached out to my parents again, neither did I. We heard they moved. Some small town 2 hours away. They told someone they wanted a quieter life. Sure. Or maybe too many people stopped inviting them to things. Too many old friends suddenly had plans. Too many people read that article and decided Maybe these aren't the good grandparents we thought they were. Ava never got a real apology. I never got reimbursed for that restaurant bill. But you know what? We got something better. Clarity, peace, a future carved out of cake layers and beet salad and stubborn defiance. Ava built it with her own two hands. And no one can take that from her. So yeah, that's how my daughter's first heartbreak became her first headline. How a ruined birthday turned into a full course rebirth. How I stopped funding people who thought guilt could buy my silence. I chose my daughter, and I'd do it again tomorrow. But here's the part I'm still unsure about. The part I keep circling back to when the house is quiet and Ava's off baking something for a customer who actually respects her. Did I go too far? Was the dinner party too much? Was the article too much? Was letting that video go viral knowing full well it would crush them socially too much? Or was it just finally enough? Because for years I let things slide. They disrespected me, overlooked me, dismissed me. And I took it. I swallowed it down. I rationalized it. Because I was the second daughter, the surprise but sweet one. The one who fixed the broken fans and got grounded for it. The one who learned early that being right didn't matter if no one was willing to listen. But Ava wasn't going to be the next in that chain. Not if I could help it. So maybe I was harsh. Maybe I overcorrected. But when I looked into her eyes that night, watched her realize in real time that she'd been invisible to the people she loved most, I knew there was only one way forward. I wasn't just standing up for Ava. I was standing up for the younger version of me who never got the applause, who got told no at every turn, who learned to keep her head down because it made things easier. Not anymore. Not for her. Not for me. So if you're still listening and you've ever wondered whether it's worth setting boundaries, even if it means lighting a few bridges on fire, I want you to remember this. Some bridges need to burn so you can stop walking back to places that were never safe. And sometimes the best thing you can do for your child is show them what that fire looks like. Now tell me, was I wrong? Or was it finally the right kind of too much? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, more real ones, messy ones that end in something more, what to do, like subscribe and hit the bell. The funny thing is, I didn't set out to become that mom. The one, the fiercely protective you mess with my kid, I'll burn down your lawn kind. I always thought I was calmer, reasonable, the one who smoothed things over when my family got sharp-tongued at dinners, the one who let things go to keep the peace. But then Ava came along, and suddenly keeping the peace didn't seem so noble anymore. It felt like betrayal in slow motion. Let me take you back just briefly to how she even got into food. She was 9 the first time she made something that stopped me in my tracks. It was a scrambled egg, not fancy. Just eggs, butter, a little cream. But the way she moved in the kitchen, focused, careful, and flow, it was like watching someone arrive in their own skin. She plated it on a saucer like it was fine dining. And when I took a bite, I remember thinking, oh, this isn't a hobby. This is her thing. From then on, she was unstoppable. She'd watch YouTube tutorials of Michelin star chefs before bed like they were lullabies. She read cookbooks the way other kids read graphic novels. She'd come home from school and decompress by chopping herbs. When kids at school were watching slime videos, Ava was whispering words like roux and sous vide and umami. It wasn't just cute, it was conviction. And still my family never took it seriously. They joked that she was playing chef or asked if she was still in her food phase, like she was going to wake up one day and trade her apron for a law school brochure. I'd try to explain. I'd show them her creations. I'd talk about the structure, the technique, the attention to detail. I even once compared her plating to Japanese kaiseki. My mom blinked and said, "Is that a sushi thing?" At a family gathering last year, Ava brought homemade brioche rolls, light, fluffy, golden perfection. My dad took one bite and asked if it was store-bought. She laughed. But later that night, I found her in the bathroom wiping her eyes. Said she had onion hands? She hadn't chopped onions that day. So yeah, I suppose when they pulled the rug out from under her on the day she cooked for 23 people, it wasn't just about that dinner. It was about every single time they dismissed her. Every time they acted like her talent was just a phase. And what made it worse, they didn't even have the decency to lie about it. No soft excuse. No something came up. Just a cold, dry group chat message we've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. Adults only. Like her dreams didn't count. Like she didn't count. That's the part I keep turning over in my head. It wasn't the food. It wasn't the cost. It was the casual cruelty. The effortless way they discarded her. And you might be thinking, well, maybe they didn't realize how much it meant to her. Maybe they didn't know how hard she worked. But they did. They've been getting text updates all week. Pictures, menu previews. Ava even sent out digital invites complete with a schedule and dress code. They knew. They just didn't care. And that more than the money, more than the embarrassment, that's what I couldn't forgive. Because Ava didn't just cook that weekend. She offered herself, her time, her heart, her hands. And they responded with silence until the internet noticed. And then suddenly we were the problem. Suddenly they were the victims. Suddenly we had ruined their reputation. But the truth is they did that all on their own. We just stopped hiding it for them. You know what's wild? After the article went viral, a handful of people messaged me privately. Not to criticize, but to thank me. They said things like, I grew up in a house like that. I wish someone had stood up for me the way you did. Thank you for showing that sometimes choosing your child means not choosing your parents. This story helped me understand my own family for the first time. And each time I read one, I felt something shift, something uncoil. Like I'd been holding tension in my body for years and was finally being told, you were right to feel that way. That pain was real. That silence wasn't peace, it was suppression. And here's what I want every parent, every aunt, every grandparent who hears this story to understand. When you dismiss a child's dream, you don't just hurt their feelings. You teach them that they're invisible, that their joy is conditional, that their passion is embarrassing. And eventually they believe you. They start shrinking before they even realize it. Unless someone stands up. Unless someone says, no, this matters. You matter. That night, standing in the middle of our makeshift dining room, surrounded by neighbors, acquaintances, half strangers, and a journalist with a camera, I saw Ava expand. Not loudly, not arrogantly, but fully. Like she finally realized she didn't need their approval to take up space. She just needed permission to stop apologizing. And I swear, when she brought out that cake, held the knife with steady hands, and smiled while slicing into her own masterpiece, I knew we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. She wasn't cooking for them anymore. She was cooking for herself, for her future, and for the people who actually showed up. After that night, after the applause, the text storms the porch showdown, something in our house shifted. It was subtle at first. Ava stopped asking, do you think they'll like it whenever she made something? She just cooked. She started experimenting more bold flavors, strange ingredients, things even I didn't recognize. A black garlic gelée. Some kind of trout roe panna cotta. I stopped trying to keep up and just said, smells amazing, chef. We were finally out of the approval trap and the silence from my parents. Honestly, it was a relief. No more awkward holidays. No more swallowing pride just to keep the mood pleasant. No more watching Ava shrink because someone rolled their eyes when she used words like emulsify or confit. We just lived. But life has a funny way of nudging you with reminders that even when you think a chapter is closed, there's always someone itching to scribble something else in the margins. 3 months after the article, Ava got her first paid gig, a small dinner party for 8. A woman who read the article lived in another neighborhood and messaged, my husband's birthday is coming up. He read the piece and said, I'd rather eat that girl's duck than go anywhere with a dress code. Ava grinned when I read it aloud. She planned the whole meal like it was the Met Gala. Charcuterie board with homemade pickles and truffle mustard, a slow-roasted lamb shoulder with rosemary juice, and a dessert she called Citrus Symphony, which involved candied blood oranges, Meyer lemon curd, and some kind of edible flower I can't pronounce. They tipped her $200 over what she charged. After that, the inquiries started trickling in. A school administrator who needed baked goods for a staff appreciation lunch, a couple looking for an intimate home-cooked engagement dinner, a woman who ran a wellness retreat and wanted a heart-forward chef with creative vision. I still don't know what heart-forward means, but Ava lit up like a stadium when she read that one. And here's what really mattered. People weren't hiring her out of pity. They were hiring her because she was good. She was ready. And if my family thought they could erase that, they'd severely underestimated both of us. One day, Ava came to me and said, Mom, I think I want to start filming some of my recipes. Like, actually make content, tutorials, reviews, behind-the-scenes stuff. You know, show people what it's like. And I said, finally, do it. So we set up a cheap tripod, used natural lighting, recorded in one take. The first video, her signature lavender glazed carrots. She posted it, forgot about it. By morning, it had 6,000 views. People asked questions, left comments. One woman said, I made this for my mom, and she cried. Thank you, Ava. Another said, I remember your name from the article. So glad to see you thriving. She gained 2,000 followers in a week. And that's when it really clicked for me. This wasn't about a birthday dinner anymore. This was about ownership. Ava had taken the most humiliating, dismissive moment of her life and turned it into momentum. She didn't just recover, she built something out of sugar and fire and stubbornness. And that's when the knock came again. Not at our door this time, in our inbox. It was from my cousin Leah, one of the rare family members who had not participated in the group dinner disaster. She lived out of state and had messaged me once right after the article with a simple saw it. You did the right thing. This email was different. Subject line, you need to see this. Attached was a screenshot from Facebook. My mom had posted in a private group for grandmothers who support each other, a support group. Her post read, my granddaughter falsely accused our family online and in the media. It's been a nightmare. We've been cut off, shamed. And we can't even speak our truth without being painted as monsters. Please pray for us. Hundreds of comments followed. Sympathy, support. Even one that said, sounds like that girl needs discipline, not applause. I stared at it for a long time. And then, for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Because I saw it clearly now. My mom wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to rewrite the story. She was clinging to a version of herself where she'd never been wrong. Where Ava's pain was just a tantrum. Where I was the ungrateful daughter who turned everyone against the family. She wanted to be the victim. She needed to be. Because the truth that she hurt her granddaughter so deeply that a crowd of strangers showed up to fill the seats she left empty was too much for her to bear. So she created a new version. One where we were cruel. Where we were dramatic. Where her silence was strength and our truth was betrayal. I showed the post to Ava. She didn't say anything. She just shook her head and went back to folding napkins for a small catering order. And in that moment, I realized we didn't need them to understand. We didn't need them to change. We didn't even need them to apologize anymore. Because we were done handing out invitations to people who never show up. A few weeks later, Ava's name was featured in a local food column. It wasn't huge, just a paragraph and a roundup about up-and-coming culinary talent, but it mattered. The journalist described her food as surprisingly refined and emotionally resonant, which I thought was an odd way to describe duck confit, but Ava teared up reading it anyway. She didn't frame the article or anything. She just folded it and slid it into a cookbook. Quietly. Like a little secret she was saving for a rainy day. And that's kind of how everything was after the storm, quieter but stronger. No big declarations, no victory laps, just consistent progress. Clients, content, culinary school paperwork. She was building something real, sustainable, on her own terms. And while all that was happening, my parents disappeared from the social landscape. We didn't hear from them, not directly, but word got around. Someone from my mom's Bible study group told a friend of a friend that they weren't going to church anymore because people had become too judgmental. Apparently, my dad left his golf club because the atmosphere changed, and they moved 2 towns over. Closer to my sister, who surprised was also taking a break from social media after what she called a difficult family misunderstanding. I don't know if they ever connected the dots between their actions and the consequences. I doubt it. People like them rarely do. They think exile is bad luck, not accountability. But that wasn't our concern anymore. We were free, and I didn't realize just how free we were until Ava got her first invitation to speak. It came from a youth mentorship program, girls ages 13 to 18, all interested in food design or creative careers. They asked if Ava could come and talk about her journey, about building confidence, about resilience. She was nervous. I'm not a motivational speaker, she said, fidgeting with her apron strap. You don't have to be, I told her. Just tell your truth. So she did. She stood in front of a room of girls with braces and clipboards and nervous energy, and she told them about the birthday dinner. Not to get sympathy, but to show what comes after. She told them about the menu, the planning, the heartbreak, and the decision to serve the meal anyway. And then she told them what she realized standing in that kitchen, frosting a cake no one had shown up to eat. You don't need everyone to see you, you just need a few people who really do. The rest, that's background noise. The room went quiet. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did. I watched from the back, trying not to cry into my lukewarm coffee. Because this wasn't the girl who used to cry in the bathroom after family brunch. This was someone who had turned rejection into purpose, who had taken a table set for 23 and made it a feast for whoever was willing to sit down. That night, Ava made us dinner, just the two of us. Lemon risotto with pan-seared scallops. We sat at the kitchen island with mismatched forks and drank sparkling water out of wine glasses. I told her how proud I was. She nodded quiet. Then she said, I don't think I want them back. I knew exactly who she meant. I nodded too. You don't have to. She paused. I always thought being family meant showing up. It should, but it doesn't. No, not always. And that was that. No big dramatic declaration. No rage. No final letter. Just a quiet closing of a door that had already been left open too long. After dinner, she went to her room to test a recipe for a new project, a small batch pastry box she wanted to launch. She came down an hour later with a mini tart she called Closure. I laughed, took a bite. It was buttery and tangy and somehow made me feel like I just finished a very long novel. That's what healing looks like, I think. Not fireworks. Not apologies wrapped in guilt and last-minute roses. Just clarity. A tart. A meal for two. A kid who now knows her worth. I never responded to the Facebook post my mom wrote. Never commented. Never tried to correct her version of the story. Because here's the truth, the people who want to believe her will. They need her to be the victim so they don't have to question themselves. And the people who know better already came to dinner. They already saw. They tasted the thyme butter and the sugar-free pear tart. They stood up to toast a girl who'd been dismissed and disrespected and who still served dessert with a smile. They became her people. And they're not going anywhere. I used to think forgiveness had to look like reunion. Like hugging it out and sharing coffee and pretending the wounds were smaller than they were. Now I think forgiveness sometimes looks like this. Choosing to stop bleeding for people who aren't even sorry they cut you. Choosing to build your own table and fill it with people who bring wine and folding chairs and ask, do you need help with dishes? That's what Ava's done, and I've followed her lead. So if you're watching this and you've got a story that tastes a little bitter, know this. You can sweeten the ending. You don't need everyone to clap, just enough to make it echo. By the time Ava's second pastry box sold out, I realized something wild. The girl who once cried in her bedroom over a canceled birthday dinner was now managing inventory fielding inquiries from food bloggers and casually discussing shipping insulation like she was born for logistics. We had moved on, not in the pretend it never happened kind of way. More like we'd stepped into the next chapter, and we were writing it on our own terms. Ava's following kept growing. Not millions, not viral overnight levels, but loyal, engaged. People who bookmarked her recipes and commented things like, made your beet and orange tart again. Husband asked me to tell you thanks. I watched your lavender glaze tutorial 5 times before trying. Worth it. Your story helped me stand up to my parents. You have no idea what that means. She'd read those out loud at dinner, trying to sound casual, but I knew what they meant to her. I could see it in the way she stood taller afterward. Like every message added another layer to her confidence. And while she was blooming in her lane, I found myself stepping into mine too. I stopped keeping peace out of obligation. I stopped saying it's fine when it wasn't. I stopped funding people who weaponize my generosity. Because let's be clear what happened with that restaurant bill. That was theft. Not just of money, but of respect. Of boundaries. Of us. I thought I'd be angry about that forever, but now I'm just done. I changed my business card. Froze the account. And when tax season rolled around, I didn't include a single dime of that $1, $3.27, $90 dinner. It wasn't a business expense. It was a betrayal. No write-off in the world can fix that. And even though my sister and I haven't spoken since that day on the porch, I heard through the grapevine, of course, that she's been telling people the situation got blown out of proportion. She's apparently waiting for me to grow up and apologize. I laughed when I heard that. Not because it was funny, but because that version of the story, the one where I'm the unstable one, Ava's the problem child, and they were just trying their best. It's so clearly fiction that it doesn't even sting anymore. You know what does sting? That for so long I let their version of things overwrite mine. That I let guilt hold the pen when I should have been telling the truth. But that's over now. Because here's the truth in case anyone forgot. Ava spent 3 days creating a restaurant-worthy experience for her grandmother's birthday. She prepped, planned, cooked, cleaned, researched, frosted, and sweated through every detail. And they bailed. No warning, no apology, just a text. And then when it all hit the fan, They used my credit card to cover the dinner they chose over her effort and acted like we had embarrassed them. That's the story. No edits, no filters, just facts. And I'm no longer afraid of telling it. Because Ava deserves to have her name remembered not as the girl who got ghosted, but as the chef who turned pain into purpose, who responded to silence with hospitality, who cooked through heartbreak and plated it with grace. Recently, she told me something that stuck. We were driving to pick up ingredients for a catering order, a small anniversary dinner for a couple who'd found her through the article. She was sitting in the passenger seat humming along to a song I didn't recognize, and she said, I think the hardest part wasn't them leaving. It was wondering if I wasn't worth staying for. I almost had to pull over. Because that's the part people don't talk about enough. When someone betrays you, it's not just about what they did. It's about what you start to believe about yourself because of it. And that belief, that maybe you didn't deserve better, that maybe they were right to walk away. That's the real wound. That's the one that takes the longest to heal. But she's healing. Every recipe, every follower, every standing ovation whispered through a comment section. Each one is a stitch in the right direction. And so is this story. You're hearing it not just because it happened, but because it keeps happening. To other Avas, other daughters, other creators, dreamers, caregivers, givers. People who show up again and again for people who don't even bother to RSVP. So if that's you, if you've been told you're too much for wanting to be seen, if your effort has ever been met with silence, if someone made you feel like your pain was inconvenient, let me say this plainly. You are not too much. They were just too small to handle you. And you don't need to keep shrinking to fit. You get to expand. You get to build the life they didn't think you could have. You get to roast the duck, pipe the cake, and serve the meal to people who will actually sit down and eat. Ava knows that now. So do I. And maybe after hearing this, you will too. This isn't the ending I imagined. Not years ago when Ava first cracked an egg into a chipped mug and proudly called it souffle. Not when she stood in our kitchen at 17, flour on her nose and hope in her eyes, asking, do you think they'll like it? Back then, I still believed we could earn their approval. That if we just worked hard enough, impressed them enough, followed the rules played, nice smiled wide, we'd finally get a seat at their table. The real one. The one where your effort gets acknowledged, where your love gets reciprocated, where you belong, not out of duty, but out of choice. But it turns out we were chasing the wrong table. Because all along we had the better one. The one we built ourselves. The one crowded with mismatched chairs and unexpected guests and way too many folding tables, but filled with real people who showed up without obligation. The table where the food was made with love and served without performance. That's the table Ava chose, that I chose. And if you're someone who's standing in a kitchen of your own right now, literally or metaphorically, wondering if what you've created is worth it after being ignored or dismissed, I want to tell you this. Yes, it is. Your effort matters. Even if the people you made it for walked away. Even if they pretended not to see you. Even if they used your kindness and then handed you the bill. Because effort is never wasted when it's born from love. It just needs the right audience. And sometimes you don't find them until the people you thought would be there are gone. And I know this isn't the happy ending tied in a neat little bow. Ava still hasn't spoken to my parents. They haven't reached out, and frankly, I don't think they will. I'm not holding my breath. There are no tidy reconciliations, no holiday cards, no miraculous family therapy breakthroughs. But there's peace, there's space, there's truth. And honestly, that's enough. A few weeks ago, Ava was featured in a regional culinary magazine. A full spread photos of her plating tiny desserts with tweezers, a short interview where she talked about the birthday dinner and what she learned from it. The interviewer asked, would you cook for them again? She paused. Then she said I'd cook for them if they showed up hungry for the right reasons. That answer stayed with me. Because it wasn't bitter, it wasn't angry, it was mature, measured, honest. She didn't say never, she didn't say absolutely. She said if they came with hunger not for food but for accountability, for connection, for growth, then yes. Maybe. And that's more grace than they ever gave her. We framed that magazine page, by the way. It's hanging in the kitchen now, just above the spice rack. Not because it's flashy, but because it's a reminder. This house is no longer a waiting room for approval. It's a home for creation, a sanctuary for self-worth. And Ava, she's not a little girl begging to be seen anymore. She's a woman who sets her own table, who decides who gets a seat, who cooks with the kind of love that doesn't beg for applause but earns it anyway. And I, her mother, am finally done apologizing for being the storm that protected her. Because the truth is I didn't go too far. I went exactly far enough. And if I had to do it all over again, if I had to scrub that floor again, set that table again, watch her eyes shatter again when she saw that text, I'd still choose the same path. I'd still call in every neighbor. I'd still serve every dish. I'd still block every number that expected loyalty without respect. Because that night didn't ruin Ava. It revealed her. It showed her that her passion is real, her voice matters, and her worth is not defined by people too afraid to taste what she brings to the table. So, if you're listening to this and it resonates, if you've ever wondered whether standing your ground will make you the villain in someone else's story, remember this. Villains are just heroes in someone else's denial. And you don't owe anyone your silence just because they share your last name. You don't have to keep showing up for people who never bring a chair for you. You can tell your story, fully, truthfully, loudly. And when they knock on your door, when they ask you to fix what they broke, remember, you don't owe them a rewrite. You owe yourself a beginning. So tell me, did we go too far? Or did we finally choose the ending they never saw coming? Let me know in the comments. And if you're building your own table, if you've been through something similar, if you've had to choose peace over permission, I see you. We all do. Welcome. Take a seat. There's plenty of room.